Hi, and thank you for listening. This is Sherry Andrea, and you can find me at sherryspeaks.com, where you can find 80 plus attunements starting at $2.50. And occasionally, I do have attunements that are free. Like right now, the one that's on the site that's free is the Reiki 1, 2, and Master. Help get you started. But let's get right into it, because it's been a while and I know you've been waiting for me to do the other parts of these. Okay, so this is it's titled Real Ghost Stories from a Psychic, and that's what we're calling it, but it's basically metaphysical spiritual experiences. Okay, so number one today, I used to, when my son was young, when he was in elementary school, like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, they have that rule where the parent has to be at the bus stop. If you're not at the bus stop, they're not going to let your child off the bus. They're going to take them back to the school. So every day I would be, I would do some housework first thing in the morning after he went to school. Then I would do my spiritual work and everything. Then I would, I'd practice, my abilities, and then, or do whatever. And then I would take a nap. And usually I would take a nap around 1 in the afternoon, but the kids get home from school around 3:30. So 1 in the afternoon is kind of cutting it close too, because what if you oversleep? You know what I mean? When you go to take a nap, I would always be so concerned that I would oversleep and possibly miss the school bus. I guess I was just so worried and so paranoid about it that one day I laid down, and before I laid down, I asked my higher self, okay, I really need your help. I need you to wake me up. I need to not sleep more than an hour, hour and a half. And I need you to make sure that I get up. And at that time, it kind of made sense to me to do that, because at the time I had been practicing using my abilities to do things like that, to be my alarm clock, to literally not use an actual alarm clock, but to use my abilities to wake me up at a certain exact time. And yes, up until that point, it had been working very well. That's the reason why I felt like, yeah, this is a good idea, because this is going to work, because I'd already been practicing with that. So I lay down to take a nap, and all of a sudden, I hear somebody yelling like they were in my head, yelling, "Wake up!" And it was so loud, I nearly fell off the sofa. I literally had to catch myself, one hand on the tile floor to catch myself from falling off the sofa. It was so loud, so shocking, so unexpected. Now, don't even ask me what I expected, because you're probably thinking, well, if you were going to be waken up by your higher self, how did you think she was going to wake you up? I don't know. I guess I thought it would be some gentle nudging in my mind. That's why I was thinking. I was like, this is my higher self. And I would I guess I would have expected the same thing from the angels or the ascended masters. Like, if they're going to wake me up, it's going to be a gentle, lovely nudging. No, it wasn't. She did do exactly what I asked her to do, though. She made sure I was up. It was shocking. I remember just sitting on the sofa for a minute, trying to wrap my mind around what had just happened, and I was breathing kind of hard. I was kind of out of breath. That, how when you're surprised by something or something scares you, and then you're like, oh, I gotta catch my breath. I'm sitting there like that, and I'm like, okay, then there's that happen. And I'm trying to wrap my mind around it. Like, hmm, you know, I'm thinking about my clairaudient abilities, and I'm like, you know, at that time I had always been saying, oh, my clairaudience isn't my strongest ability. I struggle with it, blah, blah, blah. That was a lesson for me at the time, that there's nothing wrong with my clairaudient abilities. There is nothing wrong. And often that is the case with most people. It's just a matter of practicing and hanging in there and, believing and trusting that, yeah, you're going to develop them just fine. But it was a good experience in that it answered that question for me. Like, can I develop abilities that work, clairaudient abilities that work in that way? So if you've ever questioned, like, oh, well, I wonder if I have the ability to develop clairaudience in a way where I can actually hear clearly in my head spirit saying something in the same way, just as though somebody's standing right next to me talking to me, then this kind of it would validate it for you. It would make you go, oh yeah, okay, well, that happened, I experienced it, that means I can manifest it in that way. I can manifest clairaudience in that way. So in case any of you were ever wondering, yeah, you can. Is it difficult? It depends on what you think of as difficult. If you think something that's going to take 3 or more months to work on is difficult, then maybe it's not for you if you don't have that kind of patience to hang in there. But yes, absolutely possible. Yeah, that was like, that was one of the experiences I had that will always stand out to me. Always. Now, the next one, the next one has to also do with energy work. Okay, so back in the day, I used to make candles. This really, I actually got into making candles long before I awakened and started working on metaphysics. And long before I started doing energy work. So this was just a hobby that I had from the past. I've had a lot of hobbies. I'm like that person. I love arts and crafts. I'll go into Joann's or Michael's and like see something and be like, oh, I've always wanted to do that, and then buy all this stuff that I need. The only thing I haven't done that with is baking. I've always wanted to, but that's the one hobby I've stayed away from. So anyway, so I started off learning to make candles using regular wax. That was kind of messy. I didn't really like it because it was messy. Then I tried other mediums, like gel wax was my favorite, because in actuality, it can be so easy. For example, back then, I had a crock pot that I dedicated strictly to my candle making, and I would put the gel in the crock pot, set it on not the highest setting, but the medium setting, and just, you just walk away, do other things, and then after a little while, the gel would be melted and you can go ahead and make your candles. I loved working with gel. Also, gel wasn't as messy, and I thought also with making gel candles, it was more, it wasn't as easy to make a bad candle. I don't think I ever made a bad candle when I used gel wax. So that I also liked. So anyway, so I hadn't begun awakening yet, but I was, still into making candles, and I was kind of into spirituality in a small way. What I would do is, when, if somebody said, oh, your aunt, your uncle, your cousin is sick or something's wrong with them, I would make a candle specifically for them. So, and keep in mind, I wasn't attuned to Reiki at the time. So don't even ask me how I knew to do this, because I don't know. So as I was at this time, I wasn't using a crock pot to melt the gel wax. I had this, I don't know what you call it, but it's something that they sell specifically for melting on the stove, melting the wax. But anyway, so I'm melting the wax, and as I did, you're doing things like you're adding color, maybe you're adding fragrance, and you're stirring, and you got your thermometer and you're waiting for it to reach the right temperature. And so as I would be stirring, I would be like doing things like thinking of the person I'm making the candle for. I might be saying a prayer for them at the time I'm doing it. I was trying to imbue into the candle what I wanted it to do, what I wanted it to be for. Now, the whole point of this wasn't for me. I wasn't going to give them a candle. No, this was for me to do healing on them. And keep in mind, this was before I knew anything about healing. So I don't even know where I came up with the idea to do this. And then after I make the candle, I would then, once it was cooled and everything like that and ready to burn, which was almost right away with gel wax, I would light the candle and, say a little prayer as I was lighting it. And then I'm done. I would, walk away, go do something else, right? Or clean up the candle stuff and put it away. So one day my mother had told me that my aunt, who had diabetes, and I forget which type of diabetes she had. I don't think it was type 2. But she told me that she was in the hospital and that she wasn't doing well. And so I make this candle and for her. And once it's done, sit it on the counter, I light it. I look at it. It's burning perfectly. Walk away. I go in the kitchen to clean up the stuff that I used to make the candle, right? I turn back and the candle's out. The flame is out. And I thought, that's odd, because I know that candle was perfect. As far as the way I made it, the wick size I used, everything. And I got validation of that because when I lit it, the burn was just right. So I say, So I lit it again. Walk away. Turn back a few seconds, maybe a couple of minutes later, it's out again. I'm like, this is like, and I'm thinking in my mind, this is kind of frustrating because I know this candle is good. I light it a third time. I don't walk away. I light it. I stand there. And it literally, it doesn't just shrink to a small size. The flame doesn't shrink to a small size and go out. No, it's almost like somebody blew it out. Like literally, how how it looks when you blow it out. It there's that breeze. It blows out, and then there's a little whiff of smoke that comes up for it. So that's exactly what happened as I'm watching it. Don't you know, like, I want to say it would have been no more than 15 to 20 minutes later. My phone rings. It's my mother telling me that she had died. And then that's when it made sense to me. That's when I understood what was going on with the candle. The purpose of the candle was to give her healing, was to help her get better. Spirit was, I guess, blowing it out like, honey, there's no need. It's over. That was one of the experiences I had that still to this day, it's very touching to me. Like, when you remember it, and I don't know. It's great to learn from your experiences, but then at the same time, it's also a little sad So that's one of the experiences where I learned from it, but it's still a sad memory for me. Um, so when you think of what spirit has the ability to tell you how they have the ability to communicate with you through any means, um, alarm on your phone, um, your computer, like say when your computer is asleep, your computer all of a sudden coming out of sleep mode and miraculously ending up on a certain website. Spirit has the ability to do everything and anything. I know some of you are thinking, well, then why doesn't Spirit do more for me? Yeah, I wish that too. Because yeah, if Spirit could do even more for me in my life, I'd have a list of things. I'd be like, here's your honey-do list. But now on to number 3. Okay, so I had gotten into the habit of, like, as I was learning more, learning how things really worked, and whenever I knew somebody who died, like let's say a relative or something, often what I would do is for the next 2 or 3 days I'd be talking to them, just talking out loud. And so there were a couple occasions where it wasn't just me just talking out loud for no reason. It was me talking out loud because I noticed their presence. So I had an aunt. Oops, sorry. Hit the microphone. Sorry about that. I had an aunt who died. Now, my aunt was known for, or this is how I remember her being known for cooking of certain things. I want to say it was potato salad. She was known for a potato salad and something else. I can't remember. It's been such a long time now. But she was known for her cooking of certain things. And yeah, I do recall her being an excellent cook. From the times that we would come down to Georgia and we would visit her, often we would spend a good portion of time at her house when we went to, that city in Georgia, versus other relatives that we had, which all lived in close proximity to each other. We spent the majority of our time, a lot of times, at her house. Now that would have been my mother's sister. And that was the sister that I guess you could say partially raised my mother. I think at one point when she was young, I don't know, high school young, elementary school young, but her mother sent her, I guess, to live with her for a while. And so yeah, I would say that my mother and her were very close, which would explain why a lot of times we would spend the majority of our time at her house. But the thing was, after she died, there was a lot of fighting going on. We didn't go to the funeral. We didn't go up there. And it's probably a good thing we didn't. There was a lot of fighting going on. Fighting over her property, as in her house. Police were called. People were doing shady things like, forging documents, going to the courthouse, getting the deed in their name. I mean, there was a lot of crap going on. And so it's probably a good thing that we didn't go. But while all that fighting and everything was going on, I remember I was sitting on the sofa. All my stories have me sitting on the sofa, don't they? Well, that's where I did my spiritual work. So I spent a lot of time there. So I was sitting on the sofa and I don't know what I was doing. Probably either meditating, saying decrees, prayers, something like that, right? And all of a sudden, my whole house filled with the smell of food. It smelled like somebody was cooking a 5-course meal in my kitchen. But with the exception that as I stood up and I walked towards the kitchen, I realized it's not a smell that's coming from the kitchen. It's literally filled the house. Now, some of you that have this ability know what I'm talking about, where if you tried to walk around and pinpoint where the smell is coming from, you would just walk around and still be like, I'm still smelling it, but never pinpoint where it's originating from. Why? Because really technically it's inside you. If you understand how your abilities work, it's really not outside yourself. It's really inside, like almost like saying, yeah, but the smell really is in your head. And it's giving off this perception that it's in the room. It's not like, let's say you're cooking something and it starts to burn. Literally, you would be able to smell that that's coming from the kitchen. And if there's any smoke, it's coming from the kitchen, right? So you could literally, as you walk to the kitchen, the smell would get stronger and stronger. No. So when it comes to psychic smelling, the smell stays consistent as you're walking around the house going, where's that coming from? It is kind of one of the hints that it's psychic smelling. That is one of the hints that it is. It's like, because it seems everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So you can't pinpoint it. It's strong. It's there, but you just can't pinpoint it. You can't find that smell. Usually, yeah, that's a clue. That's a psychic smell. Now, I'm not saying always, because some of you are going to be a smart ass and go, oh, well, so that means, if my, if my computer's on fire, that I should think that it's a psychic smell I'm smelling. No, come on. Obviously, we use common sense. Of course, suggest, just like I do, if you smell something that smells like it's on fire, you investigate, don't you? Of course you're going to use common sense. But once you investigate and you're like, that smell, it's everywhere, it's nowhere, and nothing is burning, nothing is this, nothing is that. It's kind of like saying process of elimination. Okay, so I knew it was her. And then if you ask me, well, how did you know it was her and not somebody else? Well, because I also have the ability of just knowing. And it was like, as soon as I smelled it, she came to mind. I could see her in my mind's eye as clear as anything. And I started talking to her. And I have really, my strongest ability is clairsentience. So, she was communicating through me, and mainly it was my clairsentience that was picking it up. And, I was just asking her different questions, like, I'm sure you know what's going on with all the fighting and everything. And I said, do you want me to call anybody and talk to anybody about it? Is there a message you want me to give anyone related to it? She told me no. It was almost like what came across to me was this feeling of, no, I have no concern with that anymore. I don't care what they do. I don't care if they fight over my stuff. It's not important to me anymore. It was a really good experience. It really was. It was a really good and positive experience. And again, it just shows you spirit will find a way to communicate with you if you're open to it. I'm not saying that this is easy or foolproof. I'm not saying, oh, if you're open to it, it's easily going to happen for you every time. No. Most of you that work on metaphysics know it's not that simple. If it was that simple, everybody'd be developing their psychic abilities, you know what I mean, if it was that easy. I'm just saying the first step is to be open to that communication, to be open to allowing it. So anyway, those are the 3 stories for today. I hope that you enjoyed them. Feel free to comment, if you've had similar experiences to the ones I've talked about. Feel free to comment and like share what you experienced and maybe even how it emotionally affected you, because I think we sometimes don't talk about that enough, how these experiences emotionally affect us, how it sometimes gives us new hope or teaches us something we really needed to know or really needed to understand. So feel free to do that. Like I said, if you're looking for me, you can find me at sherryspeaks.com. You can also, through my website, if you would like to schedule a reading or coaching, you can head over to my website and you can schedule a 30-minute or a 60-minute. I hope you have a great day, and I appreciate you. And life can be tough. Hang in there. And I appreciate you. And I will talk to you soon. Namaste.